Hey, Tommy from the Run Testers. I am in Lewes today doing the Lewes 10-mile downland trail race. Haven't done it before, but it's the first bit of the Moorman, which I did earlier on this year. I'm going to be testing the Saucony Xodus Ultra 3 trail running shoes. I've only used them a couple of times so far for easy runs, so we're going to see what they're like for a faster session. Seem very comfortable at the moment. And that's it. Right, I'm going to go ahead and start, and I will talk to you in a bit. Okay, so I'm back now from the Lewes 10-mile downland race. If you're not familiar with Lewes, it's a very, very nice town in Sussex that has the downs surrounding it, so lots of big hills around it, and it has some fantastic views. It's an amazing place to run, and I always run around that area when I go and do long trail runs. I haven't done this race before, but I have done the Moorman, which is a marathon that takes place earlier in the year. It starts at the same location and takes in some of the same route as the 10-mile race. So if you've done that before, you'll be aware of some of the route. If you live around the downs and you do trail running, you've definitely covered a lot of the route that the race takes on. It's a pretty tricky race. So there's the first part of the race is essentially just one big climb for about 4k, and it's quite tricky. It's quite a long gradual climb, so it's not really steep, and it's fairly nice to do at the start. There is another really big hill at the towards the end of the race, so that's about the 10k mark, and there's a couple of other hills in the middle, so it's quite a tricky trail race to take on if you're not used to doing hills. It was a really lucky day to do it because the weather was perfect. It wasn't hot at all, but there was a little bit of wind, but it was just really nice conditions, so it worked out really well. And I was a little bit worried because we've been having pretty bad weather recently. The other thing I was worried about was mud. So the last time I ran a race on the downs, it was really, really muddy, and I was slipping about all over the place. So in this race there was hardly any mud at all. It was a really dry course, which meant for some pretty fast times. So some of the guys who were running in it did some pretty impressive times. So the route itself starts in Lewes and takes you straight out onto the downs. You basically head straight up to one of the higher peaks around Lewes, and then you sort of go up and down across the downs until you eventually come back through. There's nothing on road, it's all on trails, and there's a bit of a mix. So there's a little bit across fields, there's a lot of public footpaths, a lot of gravel, a lot of rocky stuff. So it's a nice mixed terrain race when it comes to trails, and a good opportunity to test out some trail shoes as well. Organisation was absolutely fantastic. Some of the best organisation I've seen at a trail race. There were marshals all the way across the course. Any point that there was a risk of somebody turning the wrong way, there was a marshal there helping out. There was water stations along the route. Really, really well organised, and a really great course as well. So really, really enjoyed that race. Definitely would do it again. There are two options. There's the 10-mile version, and then there's the 5-mile version. I've not done the 5-mile version, so I can't account for that, but I think it covers pretty much the same bit of the first bit of the course as the 10-mile race, and it starts at exactly the same time as well. So all in all, really pleased with the race. Very much enjoyed it. My performance today, pretty good. I don't normally race trails. I'm normally training for a marathon or something, a road marathon, so I don't like to go all out on a trail. One, because I'm too worried that I'm going to trip over and ruin my training for a couple of weeks, but also I'm not that fast when it comes to trails, so I never go all out because it's not really my terrain. I like to focus on road time, so I tend to use trails as a bit more of an enjoyable race. Don't go all out, but just get a nice steady pace. Sometimes I like to pick up the pace throughout it when I feel comfortable, but I don't worry too much about the time overall. So I think I finished about 1 hour 20, pretty happy with that, and yeah, finished feeling very comfortable at the end, and helping my confidence for training for Valencia as well. So great race, well organised, well worth looking at if you're looking for a trail race around or near the south coast. It's pretty cheap. You can get the early bird entry to the race for £20, and instead of a medal you get a mug. And I really like getting mugs and pint glasses and stuff at the end of races, because I've got far too many medals and I don't have that many mugs. Right, let's jump in and see what kit I was testing. So just one thing I've been testing today, and that is the Saucony Xodus Ultra 3. Now, I haven't tested previous versions of this shoe. I'm always a bit skeptical when I pick up a shoe that's classed as an ultra running shoe, because I'm not an ultra runner, so I always think, well, maybe this shoe isn't going to be for me. But I think the fact that this is classed as an ultra shoe, it doesn't negate its benefits when you're not running an ultra. There are certain elements to this shoe which lend itself to running long distances. It's meant to be quite stable. It's also got a nice level of padding in it and cushioning. Inside it's got power on PB, which is designed to give you a little bit more energy return, and also it's got this really stable base of foam as well that surrounds that power on PB. And I really enjoyed running it. It's a really, really comfortable shoe. It reminds me of something like the Peregrine range, a nice balanced shoe. So it does have a nice level of cushioning, not loads, it's not soft, it's not wobbly in any way. It still feels very, very stable to run in. But when you're on those harder sections, and there are quite a lot of harder sections today, just felt really, really comfortable, really nice to run in. You could probably run on the road in this as well quite comfortably, and had no issues at all. The lugs on the outside of this are 4mm, so not massive, pretty similar to what you'd get on something like the Peregrine. But on the ground that we're running on today, and I said it wasn't very muddy, so it wasn't wet mud. I'm not sure this would do amazingly well in wet mud because the lugs are only 4mm. But on the ground, which was quite soft in certain places, there was a lot of running across fields. Those lugs did a great job. It felt like a very grippy outsole on that sort of condition, and just felt very comfortable throughout. It's definitely a shoe that stability is really noticeable when you're running out on the trails. There was quite a lot of uneven ground on the course, and I didn't at any point feel like I was losing stability. And I do sometimes when I test trail shoes that don't have a good level of stability in them. So all in all, really solid all-round trail shoe. And I think even though it is classed as an ultra shoe, I think a lot of people would get on with this completely fine, and you could use it for different distances, because it's definitely got a nice level of all the things that you would want from something that does long distance, but you also want those things for more general running as well. The upper is very comfortable. There's a nice bit of padding around it. There's probably too much padding on the tongue, to be honest. It's quite a thick tongue. Didn't have any issues with it. Felt very comfortable wearing it, but it just seems like it's unnecessary to have this level of padding on a tongue. And the upper, very comfortable. It's got a nice sort of structured design to it. One thing I would say about it is it does feel quite narrow. It definitely sort of goes up to this sort of pointy shape at the top. I was fine for the first half of that 10 miles, but later on I did feel a little bit of rubbing around the side of my foot, because it does get a little bit narrow as you start to come up towards the toes. That's the one thing I would say about the fit of this shoe. Yeah, I might want to size up half a size in this to get a more comfortable fit. But all in all, really solid shoe for that sort of running I was doing on those conditions today. But probably is limited to those sorts of conditions. If it was on wet ground, boggy ground, I think this probably would not deliver as well as it did on that course. But as a long distance, comfortable, balanced trail shoe, I think it was really, really good. Looking forward to doing some more runs out on the downs in it. So that's it from me on the Lewes Downland 10-mile race. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click that little bell. And if you go into the caption below, you can find a link to our podcast, which comes out a couple of times each month. Thanks a lot for watching. Catch you next time.